bleed green? Are you an ultimate Eagles football fan? Well, you're in the right place. This is Birds 365, hosted by the new Mac and Mac, Jody McDonald and John McMullen.
Here we go.
Who collectively have covered and talked about more than 50 plus years of Eagles football. Kick off your day with Birds 365. You'll get debate.
We love to argue.
You'll get the real story from inside the locker room. And you'll hear from some of the great football minds from around the region. You're about to become an Eagles insider. Get in the game. Join Jody Mack and Johnny Mack and join the football community that flocks to Birds 365. Birds 365 starts right now.
Welcome to the NFL. Let's go.
And a good football Monday, Birds fans. How are you? You got the Mac and Mac guys, John McMullen and Jody McDonald, both going with the Johnny Cash black T-shirt look with you for the next 2 hours here on Birds 365. And thanks to the 40-some-odd guys who streamed in early before we ever got this bad boy underway. I'm going to tell you ahead of time, I got no bloody idea how the show's going to go today. Yeah, when was the last time you took a power hit at Shea McMullen?
A power hit? It's been a while. What are you trying to jinx things?
No. We took a power hit overnight here at my house. So I hear my wife screaming at me. I was dead to, oh my God, was I sound asleep? And she's like pushing at me and punching me, going, you know it's 7 o'clock, right? Because she knows I get up every day at 25.
Alarm. No alarm.
I am a guy who usually, I'd say 19 out of 20 times. Once out of every 20, I'll look at the clock and go, okay, I still got 5 more minutes, but what the hell, I'll get up. No, I need the alarm to get up in the morning. When I go out. And I was dead to the world. And my wife said, it's after 7 o'clock. Oh, spit. We got to get going. So I have 40 minutes behind in prep time of what I usually do.
You feel uneven. That's what happens to me in certain. Now I'm a body clock guy, man. I get up.
I'm not.
I get up no matter what, and I wish I couldn't. Wish I wouldn't. I wish I needed the alarm clock, but no, I'm always up. Man.
No, my only body clock is if I try and get more than 8 hours sleep. My back is killing me. I get up and I'm all hunched over. I can't sleep for more than 8 hours. Even if I've slept like 2 hours and 3 hours the 2 previous nights, I get 8 hours. I feel good about it, but I get up and I can't even move. So, no, I need the alarm. The alarm, it was 12 o'clock blinking on my alarm when I got up this morning. So I'm a little bit behind. Hopefully we cover everything we're supposed to cover. We will get an aid from 2 good guests today, Jeff Kerr from CBS Sports, who I'm going to give a hard time when he comes on, and Dave Zangaro, NBC Sports Philly, is going to join us. I'm going to give Kerr a hard time because he was at the Phillies game yesterday. I was doing a show from Citizens Bank Park, and he texts me and says, I just passed the great Jody McDonald. He doesn't stop and say hi. He just sends a text to tell me that he was there at the park. He couldn't wait 5 minutes till we finish the segment to say hi. We'll punch Kerr up in less than 20 minutes.
He had things to do. He was holding court.
It was friggin' before
Citizens
12
Bank
o'clock.
Park.
The first pitch wasn't until after 1. What he had to do? Go warm up his seat? I was cold at the ballpark, but still.
I found he won I don't know if he won, but he finished pretty highly in a bowling tournament. So he's probably celebrating.
Yeah. He's starting at 11:30 in the morning before the Philly game started. More power to him if he was 3 sheets to the win. But we'll talk all things Eagles and NFL draft with Jeff Kerr coming up in less than 20 minutes. And yes, hour number 2, Dave Zangaro is going to jump aboard. All right, Johnny Maxwell, I do my CBS show yesterday. last night, and my producer tells me, "Did you see the tweet on OBJ?" And I had not. And I guess all the NFL Network guys got it because it was Garofalo and Ian Rappaport. The OBJ on Saturday, I had read that the Jets were bringing him in, going to do a complete physical. Yeah. And that when you do that, when a guy who's been out for an entire year agrees to a complete physical, that means they're close to a deal. That they're damn close to a deal. So he's going to be landing with the Jets. Depending on what the dollar figure was, I was kind of hit or miss on whether it was a good idea or not. We know he's got the talent to be a star wide receiver, but we've seen a lot of OBJ DNPs, did not play, missed the entire year last year. And the rumors were out there that he was asking for $20 million for one season, which I thought was outrageous. He got pretty close to it, John. Apparently, he parachuted from the plane from Miami to New York out over Baltimore and got out there and signed a one-year deal with the Ravens for $18 million, $15 million of which is guaranteed. He's got like $3 million in incentives. Is this an attempt to assuade Lamar Jackson, that the Ravens are really in it to win it and that they need him and want him?
Yeah, no question about it. And those two evidently been talking for a while about teaming up to win a Super Bowl in Baltimore. So I think this is a clear indication that Lamar's going to be back in Baltimore, at least for the year. And they'll try to, catch lightning in a bottle. But yeah, I mean, the Jets did this thing the right. I wouldn't be upset if I were a Jets fan. I'm not paying this guy $15 million. He's played, I don't know how many, like 21 games in 3 years. He hasn't. If you add up his last 3 seasons, he doesn't have 1,000 yards. And so this is not the Odell Beckham of old. Maybe they catch lightning in a bottle. But I mean, this is like Rashad Penny. I mean, he's never on the field. Except you're paying him $15 million, not $2 million. Right. Actually, $600,000 for Rashad Penny. I mean, it's a dumb deal, and you're trying to assuage the quarterback to come back. And maybe they catch lightning in a bottle. Yeah, it's possible, but I don't.
And we talked last week about at least my belief, and I think you're with me on this. We just disagree on who the best fit might be, who's still out there on the free agent market. That the Eagles need to upgrade wide receiver 3. Oh, we were never talking about Odell Beckham Jr. because we knew he was going to get paid something. $18 million? Yeah. No, I laughed when I read that he was asking for 20 in a season where both you and I have agreed and talked about this plenty. There's a couple of positions in the NFL that really didn't get paid this year. The cap went up again. It will go up even more in future years because the TV contracts are going to get more heavily funded. And we're believing the teams are pushing money down the road because of that, because of the even bigger salary cap increases. But it increased a good chunk this year. And it hasn't been all that visual in the free agent market. Couple of guys, couple of positions got paid, but not all of them. And up until Odell Beckham Jr. signed, the wide receiver market wasn't all that vibrant either. That's why I was thinking maybe the Eagles could get a talented player at wide receiver 3 for another bargain basement type deal that Howie Roseman has been cutting plenty of them during this offseason. This is an outlier, right? This isn't.
Yeah, but especially at this point, it's an outlier. Where everybody's budgeted, and the fact that he got this much money, and and you mentioned, I think the highest paid receiver on the market before OBJ, at least annual, was Alan Lazard.
Was the Jets? Yeah. Jets were going to have number 1 and number 2 if they signed Odell Beckham Jr.
Yeah. So, and you already have Garrett Wilson with the Jets. So I never understood the bit other than they want to do everything to make Aaron Rodgers happy when he arrives, similar to what Baltimore's doing. Boy, these quarterbacks have some power, man. But I never understood the bid from a Jet standpoint. I guess if you get them for $10 million or something like that, all right. Who cares?
Yeah, a whole bunch of incentives if we're talking 5 to 10 million and another 7 or 8 million incentives, well, then he blows out his knee again. Then guess what? You don't get any of those.
Well, and
incentives.
even 1 year. I mean, the one thing, and I think you brought this up last week. Everybody's getting 1 year deals, and I forget who we were talking with, and I agreed with them. Maybe you remember. There's not as many dumb teams as there used to be. So even if you sign, like, I think this is a pretty dumb contract, but they had to go where they had to go. But at the end of the day, it's 1 year,
Right?
and you're done with it. So, I mean, how bad could it be? You kind of forget about it. You take your medicine, it's over, and you move in another direction next season. So I think, there are fewer dumb teams, and there are more short-term contracts. And yeah, I mean, you can get out of it. Worst case scenario, he plays 6 games again. You get nothing out of him, 300 yards, 350 yards. And again, it's bad for 1 season, but you're out of it. So I can't be too over the top. But yeah, I mean, I was stunned how much money he got. Again, 2019, I'm just looking it up. 2019 is the last time he was over 1,000 yards. So what is the difference? 2020 he played 7 games. 2021, well, he did play a lot of games, but then tore his ACL because remember he went from Cleveland to the Rams. So it's actually 2 seasons because I was looking at the split. But nonetheless,
you can say 3 because he didn't play last year.
Yeah. Well, yes, and 3 because he didn't play last year. So if you look at the 3 seasons, and he would have been able to play late last season if he wanted to, but he didn't want to because nobody was going to give him the money to make it worth his while at that point. So if you look at that, it's probably a positive when you're coming back from the ACL to sit out that entire season. But at the end of the day, I mean, we're talking 2019 before he was even. And by the way, in 2019, Jody, he wasn't what he was with the Giants.
No.
Early in his career. I mean, early in his career, those first probably 3 seasons it was, he set the historic records that Jefferson just broke, He was at that level. It's been a long time since he's been at that level.
That's why I always try and educate calls when I go, he's going to be a Hall of Famer. You can be on a Hall of Fame track. You can be trending toward becoming a Hall of Famer, but nobody makes the Hall of Fame in their first 3 years. And in a sport like football, where injuries as prevalent as they are, you can have your career derailed. So right now, I would no longer say that Odell Beckham Jr. is on a Hall of Fame track. He was on it. He came off the track. We'll see if he can get back on it again with Lamar Jackson in Baltimore. Good luck with that. But you got to be very careful before you overstate how much a guy has done. Like you just said, he was great. 3 years. He was on a Hall of Fame track. He's no longer there. We'll see if he can get back on it. One other big signing on the weekend. I knew the Eagles were not involved in this. On a, well, I shouldn't say that. I did field a couple calls on people saying they should attempt to trade for this player. Jeffrey Simmons signed a big contract extension with the Tennessee Titans and did take a call or two saying that's who Howie Shore. We got an extra first-round draft pick. Let's go get Jeffrey Simmons. And I get it. He's a really good player. He's one of the best defensive tackles in the National Football League. But they just let Javon Hargrave walk out the door because he was going to make over $20 million. So you know that if you trade for Jeffrey Simmons, he's trying to talk his way out of Tennessee. Why? He wants to get paid over $20 million per season. Oh, shockingly, he signs an extension this week for $92 million over a 4-year deal. So he got his 22 plus. He basically got Javon Hargrave's contract, only with an extra year on the back end. I know that he would have been a phenomenal fit with the Philadelphia Eagles. But when you've already determined you're not going to pay a defensive tackle that kind of money, a guy who's just gotten you 11.5 sacks, you're not going to trade for a different one who's a little younger. I get that. But they have already laid out their salary structure and what they are or aren't going to pay. There was no chance they were getting a guy like Jeffrey Simmons. But I give him credit because he is one of the guys who got paid. I guess defensive tackle is still a position you're getting paid at in the NFL, Jay.
Oh, yeah. That's one of the value positions. And look, he's a really good player. I mean, he's better than Javon Hargrave. So yeah, from that standpoint, he'd be great to have. But you're right, you're in a different phase. You can't just pay 20 2 million, 20, whatever he got to a defensive tackle, because how many times we got to say that the quarterback extension is looming? It's a different phase for the Eagles. You can't go out and just spend monopoly money. Yeah, they do wonderful things with the salary cap and to be able to manipulate it, but that doesn't mean you can have the highest paid player at every position. And he's number 2 now behind Aaron Donald, but yeah, it's a different phase. If it were last year and they were looking for a defensive tackle, same team instead of a wide receiver, and it was a similar situation, they maybe could have pulled it off at this stage of the game. Yeah, you can't pull it off. It's just the way it is. Great player, though. Great player. And they probably, by the way, Tennessee was burned so badly by the A.J. Brown stuff that they weren't going to let it happen again.
All right, let me, before we get Jeff Kerr up here and I give him a hard time for not stopping by and saying hi to me yesterday, I want to run a trade by you because I had this conversation again on a broadcast I did this weekend about Bijan Robinson and the Eagles sitting at number 10. Peter King, whose column I read every single Monday and respect the hell out of, suggested the Eagles should just turn their nose up at their history and go, yeah, we're going to take Bijan Robinson. So we're daring you to stop Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert and now Bijan Robinson as well. Good luck. We're going to average 35, 38 points a game. I don't think it's going to happen. You don't think it's going to happen. Howie is pretty dogged about some of the stances he takes, and a running back at number 10 is probably one that he's going to stick to. So let's say the Eagles trade out, and we all believe that Howie will be aggressive in attempting to move and dodge and shake and play Monty Hall on draft day because he always does, and he usually gets the better of those deals. Let's say Bijan is the guy that people are targeting at number 10, and that's still – in my mind, value if most of the draft experts have him as the second, third, at worst, fourth most talented player. You're getting him at number 10. Even at a devalued position, you can feel good about it. Go, hey, we're getting value here. So I was looking at teams that I thought might be that uber aggressive that would move up and trade. And if you're looking at it from an Eagle perspective, how far down do you want to drop? And what would you get in exchange for it? Let me run one by you. A team that I think could get aggressive and move up and get him and actually look at him as saving money because he'd be on a rookie contract for 5 years. That 5th year would get expensive. But what about the Bengals? We know the Bengals have the probably 3 best 3-man wide receiver set in the National Football League with Burrow. Add a Bijan Robinson. Their offense would be as prolific as the Eagle offense, adding Bijan Robinson. They draft at number 28. That's a pretty precipitous drop. So you'd be drafting at 28 and 30 then if you were the Eagles. But you're coming out on all the blue chip players to get down to 28 if Cincinnati wants to pay to get up to 10. What would you look for in return if you're Howie Roseman? Would you rather have, you're certainly going to get their second-round pick, maybe their second and their third, or would you rather have another future one? Would you want to see how he kicked the can down the road another year? He's done it a couple of years running now, getting that extra one in the next year. So he's a big-time player in the draft the year after. Would you be willing to drop all the way down to 28 if you were Howie Roseman?
Yeah, because I want to pick up picks. I don't want to pick up the future one. Remember, in the past, they were picking up future ones because they didn't like they weren't sure about Jalen Hurts. They didn't like the quarterback class, and they wanted to be in a position to do something if they had to do something at the quarterback position. That has gone out the window, and now you got to pay the quarterback. So now you got to hit on guys, and it's a lot easier to hit at 10 than it is to hit at 28. Now, I do think he wants to add, for instance, I think he'll probably want to trade down from 30. So getting 28 is not as exciting to me. And he wants to trade down to 30 to pick up some mid-round picks because he's got a big donut in the middle rounds there. So that's the way I think things have shifted for the Eagles because they have the quarterback. Those future number ones were about, all right, we don't like Kenny Pickett. Let's kick back. Because remember, at this time last year, people have memory hold it.
Mm-hmm.
The Eagles weren't convinced that they had the long-term answer, and they said, well, next year's Bryce Young and CJ Stroud and all those guys, it's going to be better. Now, if Jalen Hurts laid the egg, which he did not do, he did the exact opposite, they might be thinking that way because next year's quarterback class, everybody's saying is better than this year's quarterback class. But that thinking's out the window now. Now it's about getting cost-effective difference makers around Jalen Hurts, and they have a chance to get two right off the top of the bat, right off the top on the first day of the draft. Again, it wouldn't surprise me if they wanted to move down from 30 to early in the second round to pick up some extra draft capital because those players, might even be a little bit more cost effective in the same range. But no, I don't think they would take that dip.
Yeah, 28 is pretty far. And again,
and the future number one, not as important.
You're right. But Howie does like having flexibility and being able to dictate draft. He's going to be a big major mover and shaker in this year's draft, just like it was in last year. And I think he kind of looks forward to it. So that would put him in
he'll move up and down and backwards and forwards, but I don't think it's about the future as much anymore. He's got to get some contributors in. 5 defensive starters. You got to replace those guys.
You
can talk about Nicholas Morrow and Terrell Edmonds and the contracts tell you the story. They really do. I mean, it doesn't mean they can't do anything, but it tells you that the Eagles are not counting on them to do anything. 1 year, $2 million, 1 year, $1.2 million. It says what it says.
Right. Because this year they had TJ Edwards on a 1 year contract and he up and left. And now they have to try and replace him. They acquired CJ Gardner-Johnson on a 1 year contract, didn't get it extended. He up and left. So you can win with players who are on 1 year contract with expiring contracts. I'm not sure if any of the players they brought in are as good as the ones that they did watch walk out the door on the defense this year. He's John McMullen. I'm Jody McDonald. We're the Mac Birds 365 guys. We're going to add to the mix another follically challenged friend of the show. Jeff Kerr from CBSSports.com is going to jump in with us here on Birds 365.
Imagine for a moment that you went to work today and when you came home, you were catastrophically injured. Your life and your family's life. That's what happened to union construction worker Mike Little.
I was scared of what the end was going to be, but to be 100% honest with you, I knew I was going to be all right just by talking with Brian. In my heart, I just knew everything was going to be all right.
Call the firm and find out why they say, "We got this." Call 215-458-2222.
Heading down the shore, have a ball once more.
Here, imaginations run wild and time stands still. Because here, you can find the best of the Jersey Shore, all on one 5-mile island. So leave the old you behind and get lost in the woods.
Wild, wild, wild wood days.
They're carving them up and good play calling along the way. First and goal at the 6.
field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hits and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
Football Monday here on Birds 365, show number 502. We are so glad to have Jeff Kerr here. We missed by 2 shows of getting him on our 500 show, which would have been fitting because we enjoy Steve. Jeff, don't call me Steve Kerr.
Yeah.
Whenever he hops on our show. All right, first thing before we get to the whole football thing. Why didn't you come knocking on the window of the broadcast booth I was in yesterday with Glenn Macnow? You shoot me a text afterwards and, I just saw you, George, look great. But then you go to your seat at 12 o'clock. You had to what? Because they were giving out the rings. You had to be in the seat by noon. What the hell? Why didn't you wait around? Why didn't you let me give you a bro hug?
Oh, you were on the air. I don't want to bug you that much.
Come on. We do this on the air thing all the time. You wait a couple of minutes, you're off the air. You can shoot the breeze, whatever you want. I'm sorry.
Blame my dad. He wanted the pretzel.
Sorry.
Yeah, I said he was probably holding court, Jeff Kerr, as the champion bowler. Did you win? I saw you were in the running at least.
We finished top 10, so top 10 cash. We finished top 10, so that's the first time we finished outside the top 10 that tournament the last couple of years, and we just said all we had to do was shoot our average or a little higher. We had 2 big performances.
All right, so you got some money to buy those pretzels. That's good.
Exactly.
Although
I can afford to pay to park at the
Park. You might need a couple bowling tournaments to buy a pretzel.
Couple of wins. Now, where did you bowl?
You know where Burke's Lanes is? It's outside of Reading.
Reading. Ooh, so you had to take a bit of a drive.
Yeah, it wasn't that far for me. I would say it's about 20, 25 minutes from where I live.
You can get to Reading in 25 minutes?
Oh, yeah. Just take 422 straight down.
I thought then I don't know where Jeff Kerr lives. I thought I did. I don't know. But it doesn't matter because you come on here, you stream on with us. That's all we need you for. All right. Eagles in the draft. John and I were just talking about how Howie Roseman's going to move and shake and be all over the place. And I always get tentative about that because we can sit here and we can figure out. I just asked Johnny Mac, would you be willing to move down to 28? How much would you need in return? Well, the other team's got to want it. That's why I brought it up, because I can make a case for Cincinnati really wanting to get up and take someone like Bijan Robinson. Do we unfairly just expect Howie's going to be able to wave his magic wand and get wherever he wants in the draft?
You know, it is fair to think he's going to want to at least trade down. I heard John say about trading down from 30 because you're right. The 4th, 5th, or 6th round, he won't have anything. And I think there will be a team like, say, Baltimore in 2018. They traded up to 32 to get Lamar Jackson. And was it a luxury pick for the Eagles? No, but it was a pick at the end of the 1st round, and that includes a 5th-year option. So I think a team is going to find a player they want. And we all know the draft always has these surprise first-rounders and guys that we think are going to be slam dunk first-round picks, and they're not. And some of those picks are still there, and Eagles have 30 of 31. So you're thinking, okay, maybe they trade up, and the Eagles will get, say a 4th back, maybe a 5th, maybe another 3rd. Who knows what the parameters of the deal is going to be? But I think it's more likely that 30 pick isn't at 30 for the Eagles, because to me the 10th pick is a luxury pick, and I think it depends on how the board plays out. If there are certain guys that are going to be available, which I think there are, I think the Eagles keep that 10th pick, or maybe they even trade up.
Well, Peter King threw a log on the fire this morning talking about Bijan. People can't stop talking about Bijan Robinson and the Philadelphia Eagles and projecting him here in this offense. Jody's heard me mention this a bunch of times. I'm going to run it by you, Jeff. In a lot of ways, I think having a great running back sort of limits the effectiveness of Jalen Hurts, because part of Jalen Hurts's skill set is being the +1 in the running game, helping the running back. If you have a great running back, and I think Bijan Robinson has the opportunity to be a great running back, what do? You turn around to hand the football off. In some ways, I think it's counterintuitive, but I think it would hurt the Eagles' offense by taking the zone read mechanics, taking the RPO mechanics off the table, especially with a young play caller. Remember, no more Shane Steichen, Brian Johnson, first-time NFL play caller. If you have a great running back, turn around, hand the ball off to the great running back. I don't want to limit Jalen Hurts. I don't want to limit Jalen. Am I crazy, Jeff Kerr?
I don't think. Man, this one's tough, John, because I'd love to see Bijan Robinson on this team, specifically because of what he can provide for him. But I'm just maybe under the impression, and I know you kind of are like this too. I'd be shocked if the Eagles drafted Bijan Robinson at 10 overall. It's just not their MO. They're going to draft in the trenches. I think we all know this, that they're going to draft in the trenches here. So if Bijan Robinson was at 10 and the Eagles are sitting at 10,
I think they might trade. I think they might trade out if somebody wants them. Not as far as Jody. Jody was saying 28.
Yeah.
I think they'd go to 15, maybe 16. If there were a cluster of players that they liked and they felt that they could get one of them, I could see that, but I can't see them taking him at 10 overall.
I can't hear, like, people want to talk about the Jalen Carter thing. I think that stuff is more than legit just because that's what they do. They draft players like that. And you add him with a Jordan Davis, but Bijan Robinson, they haven't drafted a running back in the first round since what, 1986?
Keith Byers, whatever year. Well, I'll give you this. I did the math. I had 16 top 30 visits for the Eagles so far. I could have missed one or two, but I had 16. 8 were defensive linemen, either edge rushers or interior guys. 3 were offensive linemen. 4 were corners and Bijan Robinson. And that kind of tells you I always tell Jody themes. Top 30 visits are about themes. They're looking at defensive linemen, offensive linemen, cornerbacks. That's what they're looking at.
Makes plenty of sense, honestly. And when they brought in Bijan Robinson, I'm like, okay, I kind of like this. They're doing their due diligence with this guy. It's not they're completely ignoring him, and you can't, because he probably is going to be there at 10. This is what I think is unfortunate with the state of the running back position. If someone asked me to name the top 5 players in the draft, Bijan Robinson would easily be on that list. He is that good of a football player. So I think that's where the whole Eagles should get him at 10 hype is coming. And it's not like they need a running back. Again, that's a luxury pick, but it's just them, Washington. I don't think Washington's drafted their running back since 70 or 71. And the Texans are the 3 teams that just don't draft running backs in the first round. Texas never draft a running back in the first round. So I just can't see it happen. Now that they traded down and he's still there, maybe, but I just can't see them trading down from 10 at this point in time. I just think they're kind of hoping that those Easter eggs of Jalen Carter kind of fall in their basket. And if he's there, I expect
that's the biggest no-brainer in Eagles history if he's there. I don't think he's going to be there. Because if the Eagles decide there are no issues off the field, or at least that they're not worried about those off the field issues, somebody else is going to be in that same category, and somebody else is taking a kid before number 10. So I can't imagine him getting to 10, but if he gets to 10, yeah, they're taking him
easily.
Worst case scenario is he falls through the first 8, and then the Bears take him at 9, who John has railed on this offseason, maybe the worst run football team over the last 12 months in the National Football League, and they get the kid at 9 right in front of the Eagles at 10. If he does get to 9, by the way, I think the Bears are taking him, so we'll see how that shakes out. I got a question on your visitation list, John. 8 defensive linemen, did you say, and 3 offensive linemen?
Yeah.
So 11 out of the 16 are in the trenches. Oh, that's shocking with the Eagles.
In our news,
how many? Now, hold on. You do have there's your usual way of building a team roster, building everything else, and then there's in the moment and the roster that you currently have. Right now, they're scheduled to start a linebacker who they paid the veteran minimum to, who's a little bit undersized, who's going to be asked to replace TJ Edwards, who had a pretty damn good year for them last year, correct? And they're going to ask
Nicholas Morrow. Yeah.
Nicholas Morrow. Good luck with that. And I do like Edmonds, but we got the whole, does he fit what they used to do? Is there going to be a change to the defense? I don't know what kind of player Evans is going to be. So they got a couple of one-year guys coming in to try and replace C.J. Gardner-Johnson and FC. And, yeah, Blankenship's in that mix, but he, too, second-year undrafted player. Don't at some point you need to think about replacing guys who have left who are really good players for you? You bought like these safety net free agent minimal payment guys to just have on your roster. How many linebackers and safeties have they had in for pre-draft visits, John?
I guess you could argue Julius Brent could be moved to safety. Kansas State, they've looked at a bunch of the cornerbacks they're looking at are sort of lengthy guys. And maybe that's their thought, because remember, I mean, they moved CJ. Maybe that's their thought process because they want coverage guys, which is why I don't understand Terrell.
Right.
It is so you never know what they're thinking, but obviously he played corner in college, so you know you have to project him more there. I've seen some people project him to safety, so you never know. But they haven't looked at a linebacker, to my knowledge. And if they did take him, it would be certainly second, third round, or day 3. And right now they don't have day 3 picks except the seventh round, so that's not going to help you. Yeah, I mean they don't care about linebackers. They proved that. If TJ Edwards didn't prove that to people, Jeff Kerr, who else will? Because not only did he become a good player, the Eagles found him. They should be proud. He was undrafted. Nobody wanted him. And you could say, throw out your chest and say, we found TJ Edwards. Look at this guy. PFF said he was an all-pro. Blah, blah, blah. Look at how good we are. Look how smart we are. And they said, nope, $6.5 million. Oh, go to Chicago. They don't care about that position. Is that unfair to say?
Oh, I think it's more than fair. I don't think they've cared about that position since they tagged Jeremiah Trotter and let him walk. That told me 20 years ago that, okay, they don't care about linebacker as much as we think they do. In fact, I was even told this all season, TJ Edwards was one of those players they said, go test your market, but please come back to us and we'll match it. Well, they didn't want to match it, I guess, because of the whole – and this was on Monday, too. We got to remember this. He was one of the first players to sign.
16 minutes. He was the first player, I believe.
Yeah, and, I'm sure the whole – this was the whole – they were making a push to re-sign CJ. So they probably figured, okay, we're trying to keep this guy. We can't pay a linebacker $6.5 million per season. And I'm like, well, it's not exactly a bad deal for – TJ Edwards, I think I would have kept him at that. And that just showed me how little they can. And then they bring in Nicholas Morrow, which I like him against the pass, but he was terrible against the run last year, John.
He's Eric Wilson without the playmaking ability.
0.2, yes.
Oh, but he had 100 tackles.
Yeah. No, but Eric Wilson would make interceptions and make plays and passes. He's Eric Wilson without the playmaking ability.
It's a good
I hate
comparison.
to say it.
It's a really good comparison.
All right, Steve Kerr, we've asked all of our guests here over the last week or so, how big a need is an upgrade at wide receiver 3 for the Eagles, as far as you're concerned?
Depends who's there. Zacchaeus is still in the market. I wouldn't mind that. He might be
We mentioned that. Everybody says that.
He might be the best offensive free agent left now because he's better than Ezekiel Elliott. Yeah, I think everybody's better. You know what? I gotta give a shout out to my boy Andrew Pacheco because he's been on the Zacchaeus train. I feel like since January. Oh, if the Eagles go after a free agent, this might be a good bargain signing. And keep in mind, this is January. We're talking about
Zander might be on the Zacchaeus bandwagon since St. Joe's Preps.
That's true. That's where I think they all get it from. He played for the Prep, so there you go. I can see Zander doing cartwheels at Zacchaeus size of the Eagles.
And they brought a couple of homeboys home last year, like White. And let him walk out the door at linebacker too. So if you're just talking about a 1-year fix, I get that. But a lot of guys have jumped in here. I'm a Jarvis Landry guy. And I know he's had better years elsewhere, but we are well into April now and he hasn't signed. So if his price tag was an issue, that's part of the reason why he hasn't signed. At some point, he's got to come to the realization, all right, they're not looking at me like OBJ. I'm not getting that contract. Where would I want to go where I can actually take a chance at a championship? The Eagles were able to get a couple of guys in season last year at the defensive tackle position who Johnny Mack called ring chasers, and I didn't disagree with that. Can they make that kind of a sale to a wide receiver 3 to come in here and say, yeah, listen, you're down in the pecking order of where you're going to get targets, but it is Jalen Hurts. He's coming off an MVP runner-up season. We can have a pretty damn good year. You can contribute to it. Can the fact that the Eagles are a Super Bowl contender help them in picking up a guy to fill out that wide receiver 3 spot?
Oh, absolutely. I'm sure they could convince one of these veterans to come here. I honestly feel if the price tag wasn't super high, you could even convince a guy like Odell Beckham to come here. But Odell wanted $20 million a year. He got 15. But say he wanted 4 or 5. I think that's where Kansas City thought they had a shot at him. And I was told Kansas City would even go up to 7 or 8. But past that, there was no way. It just wasn't in the budget. But John, doesn't it feel like though they really just want to kind of give Quez that number 3 role again next year based on what Nick Sirianni has said? And and to me, maybe it was just watching him in the locker room last year. Didn't it feel like when he was frustrated, it was more of himself and him costing the team than maybe just him. And it's hard to explain, right? Like you could tell the guy was frustrated at times, but it didn't feel like it was a lack of targets.
No, he accepted his role. I don't think that was a problem at all. Quez was disappointed himself. He said after the season, he had a bad season. Obviously, if he makes that catch in the Super Bowl, things are much different. He knows he had a bad season. Yeah, and the Eagles kind of know, if they were in a different phase, we were talking about roster building, maybe they would look for a significant upgrade. But 2 problems with that is the traffic. OBJ is not going to be happy here. Even if they had $15 million lying around to pay him, he's not going to be happy here.
I don't think he's going to be happy in Baltimore either.
I mean, he's gonna. You can't justify traffic.
He'll be wide receiver 1 in Baltimore.
Yeah,
if he's healthy, he's going to get the most targets in Baltimore.
AJ Brown's here, Devontae Smith's here, Dallas Goedert. He's not going to get the football here. So I've even brought that up with Jody with Jarvis Landry, even because Jarvis is a 4-time Pro Bowl receiver. Yeah, he's in a different phase of his career, but he's used to having the football. He's not used to. Yeah, you might get it once in the first half. You might get it once in the second half. You're unlikely to be the first option on many routes. I think role players are sort of underrated for accepting their role. So, yeah, I think the Eagles want to give Quez one more opportunity. But to me, and I've constantly said this to Jody as well, to me, it's about what's behind Quez Watkins. Zach Pascal's gone. One of the few receivers to get 2 years. We were going down that. There's how many were there, Jody? 9 receivers who got 2-year deals. That's it. And Zach Pascal was one of them. He was an important part of this offense, a little bit different because they're so run heavy with the RPO stuff, the zone read stuff. They don't have Zach Pascal. And the guys they have behind, the Britton Coveys of the world, Devin Allens, you know,
They need depth
Greg
there.
Ward. They need to add some kind of body at the wide receiver position. And if it's a young kid who beats out Quez Watkins, great. But yeah, got to find a receiver somewhere, and it's probably going to be in the draft.
I don't like how, and I heard some fans say this. Well, Quez should be cut. I'm like, who are you cutting him for? Well, a rookie. Okay, are you still going to cut him for a rookie? Knowing, like you said, it's Devin Allen, it's Greg Ward, it's Britton Covey. Right now, Britton Covey's roster spot is safe on this football team.
Right now, it is. Yeah. Tyree Cleveland, if you like him, he's around.
Tyree Cleveland. I haven't heard that name since training camp.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they need to add some kind of competition, and they will. And we still have June 1st, and we still have guys who can be cut after the draft. And maybe it's a veteran, and maybe they bring in more significant competition. But if they don't unseat Quez as the third receiver, I don't think they're going to be terribly upset because he's getting 2-3 targets a game. How upset could you be? Now, if somebody turns an ankle, if somebody gets hurt, then you got some real issues because he's not capable of being a second receiver.
You know what upset me about the wide receivers in free agency? What, like only 9 guys got multi-year deals? I thought Jakobi Meyers, if you put him with a decent quarterback, was far and away the best receiver in this class. And that ain't saying much, by the way. But then New England gives Juju 3 years, and Vegas gives Myers 3 years. I'm like, I think Myers could be a steal at that price, even with Garoppolo. I just feel like he's going to have those bigger seasons. And I can't stand Josh McDaniels, but I just feel like that was a really good signing for a team that's made a lot of them this offseason.
You like what the Raiders have done, huh?
What's that?
You like what the Raiders have done, Jeff?
I like them signing Jakobi Meyers. I still don't get what they're doing.
Okay.
Yeah. Alan Lazard, Jody's Jets are the only team that give a receiver 4 years. Alan Lazard.
And I kind of like that deal for the Jets, too, because I think Alan Lazard is a better player than most people do.
Yeah, well, I think they're trying to make Aaron Rodgers happy. But luckily, the Jets have Garrett Wilson, who I think is a really, really good player. He's only going to get better. Then it was Jakobi Meyers, as you mentioned, and Juju Smith-Schuster. Then it was 33-year-old, soon-to-be 33-year-old Adam Thielen. That's how bad the wide receiver market. 33-year-old guy.
It was not a good group for wide receivers. It was a good group for running backs, but again, you saw that market played out.
Yeah.
All right, Jeff Kerr, we may or may not have you on again before the draft comes down. I want to jump away from the Eagles for a second. You're the Carolina Panthers. You got the first pick in the draft. Which quarterback you taking?
Bryce Young, all day long. To me, Bryce Young is, I've said this since January, he's by far the best quarterback in the draft. Don't overthink it. I don't care about the size. I think Bryce Young's going to be a stud in the National Football League.
Remember when we have Kerr back on next year, Johnny Mac, by far the best quarterback in the draft. I don't think he's the best quarterback.
I think he's the best quarterback.
By far? Are you going as far as Kerr is? By far? He's going to be far better than C.J. Stroud?
I think he's the only quarterback that could develop into, I think he's got I'll say this. If you're going to throw by far, I'll say by far the highest ceiling as a prospect.
That's basically what I meant. Like, if you're looking at who's the guy that can win me a Super Bowl, Bryce Young is the guy.
Who's got a lower floor between Stroud and Young?
Well, that might be Stroud.
Yeah, that might be.
He might have a higher floor.
It may be just this Neanderthal way of thinking for me. I do not trust Ohio State quarterbacks to save my life.
Yeah, that's Neanderthal.
Never scout the helmet.
Yeah, all right, I get to do this with Jeff Kerr. I love doing it. Jeff Kerr wouldn't have drafted Joe Burrow. because there hadn't been a good quarterback coming out of LSU since
Was
Burt
he
Jones.
at Ohio
God
State?
forbid you take an LSU quarterback. History says you can't take an LSU quarterback. So screw that Joe Burrow guy. I wouldn't touch him with a 10-foot ball.
Technically, he was in Ohio State.
Yeah, he was. But hold on a second.
Technically, he was also
They
an
played
Ohio
JT
State
Barrett over Joe Burrow, and I used to argue that one for years.
Well, you can't, because people make bad decisions. Well, I mean, Justin Fields was at Georgia. Who beat out him? Was it Bennett?
No,
who beat out?
No,
Fromm. Jake Fromm.
Yeah, Jake Fromm beat out Justin Fields.
Because Stetson Bennett's been playing for 8 years, so I figured.
Here's the thing: I love Justin Fields as a player. I think Justin.
How can you? He's an Ohio State quarterback.
He went to Georgia first. I don't know anymore. These guys.
Jake Fromm, though. Jake Fromm. Georgia's pretty good, right? They're a pretty good program.
Yeah.
They thought Jake Fromm was better than Justin Fields.
Which I don't get, by the way. I still don't get. I don't know what they were thinking there. They did all that maneuvering to make sure they got Justin Fields into their program. Justin Fields could have went anywhere, and you don't play him right away. I never understood that.
That was pretty dumb on Georgia's part. I think we can all agree on that. But, Jeff, you got to move off the, oh, my God, a quarterback hasn't come out of that university before thinking. It just doesn't. It doesn't.
But what about Ohio State wide receivers? I'll draft one of them any day of the week.
Yeah, I'll draft Marvin Harrison tomorrow.
Yeah,
he might be the best the best wide receiver prospect in this draft. He's not even eligible.
Exactly. And I like Njigba. I hope.
He's a good player too. I really like him.
That'll be really tempting. I don't think he's gonna. I think he's gonna go somewhere in the teens. But if he drops down to 30, Howie, are you paying attention? Yeah, wide receiver 3, you get a value at number 30 like that. I think he's going to be a star. All right, Jeff Kerr, always a pleasure. Glad to hear you won some money bowling this week. Still ticked off that you didn't knock on the glass and come in and say hi to me and Mac now yesterday. But thank you for jumping in today.
Next Phillies game, I'm going to bang on the door while you.
2 weeks from now, we'll be back down there again. You better stop by and say hi.
It was funny, too, because I was going up the escalator to my seat. I'm like, hey, look, there's Jody Mac. I'm like, maybe I should go bug him. And I walked past, and you guys were yicking and yakking. I don't know what you guys were talking about at the time. I was listening to you guys on the way down. There was a lot of what were you guys talking? Oh, you guys had Ray on yesterday, so we were listening to Ray's.
Right. You got your football fix while going to the Eagles game. You got the best of both worlds, Kerr.
Yeah. Didn't have any traffic going down either.
Exactly. All right, Jeff Kerr, thank you very much. We'll get you back up in a couple of weeks. Appreciate it, bud.
Sounds great, guys. Thanks for having me on.
CBSSports.com, NFL writer Jeff Kerr here with us on Birds 365. All right, Johnny Mac coming back. We still got more than an hour left to play. Dave Zangaro from NBC Sports is going to jump in with us a couple of minutes. I want to go further with the Eagle visits. Johnny ran down the tally that he's got on them so far this offseason. Do we make too much of this? Because right now the Eagles have 6 picks. They've got 30 visits, so there's going to be 20. Even if they pick someone that absolutely showed up and they visited, with 24 of the guys aren't going to get picked. But we do scrutinize this, and I think we should, or should we? I'll ask John McMullen that next here on Birds 365.
Imagine for a moment that you went to work today and when you came home, you were catastrophically injured. Your life and your family's life. That's what happened to union construction worker Mike Little.
I was scared of what the end was going to be, but to be 100% honest with you, I knew I was going to be all right just by talking with Brian. In my heart, I just knew everything was going to be all right.
Call the firm and find out why they say, "We got this." Call 215-458-2222.
Heading down the shore. Have a ball once more.
Here, imaginations run wild and time stands still. Because here, you can find the best of the Jersey Shore, all on one 5-mile island. So leave the old you behind and get lost in the woods.
Wild, wild, wildwood days.
They're carving them up and good play calling along the way. First and goal at the 6.
On the field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
Don McMullen and Jody McDonald here with you on Birds 365. Thanks for streaming on in. While you're here, you could hit the like button. That would be nice of you. Come on, we just had Easter yesterday. You did all your penance for the entire season of Lent. Now do the right thing and take care of Mac and Mac. Hit that like button for us. All right. Before we get into the Eagles' visitations for the draft, I got one other question I got to run by you. So during the break, I ran upstairs, got another cup of coffee, told the wife again, thanks for waking me up because I slept through the alarm. And she said, you know, you really got to get one of those alarms that's got a battery backup, because mine didn't go off because at some point during the middle of the night.
It's my phone, Jody. Phone.
You use your phone? Yeah,
Yeah.
My wife uses her phone too. I've never used the alarm on my phone.
Now, I rarely use it, but when I do set an alarm, sometimes on the road, because the time changes, I'm not as comfortable with my body clock, so I'll set it just in case. I usually don't need it. But yeah, if you use your phone, and my wife uses her phone, and it drives me insane because
she got a bad ring to it, or
she chooses a bad ring. She knows I hate the ring. She's a snooze person. I am not.
Yeah,
so I need one alarm. That's it.
And you get up.
She's got 47. So if I do get to sleep past her, which is rare because I'm in charge of the dog who also gets up. So I've like 3 fail safes here,
right,
Jody. If I do have the chance, all I hear is every 8 minutes this same stupid alarm that drives me insane. So yeah.
All right,
I'm not a snooze guy.
Here's where I'm at with alarms. I try not to use my phone. I don't like to use my phone. If I can, if I'm just going on a short turnaround and not going to be sleeping much, I leave my phone downstairs. I don't even bring it upstairs with me, because if I'm going to sleep, I want to go to sleep. I don't want to be disturbed by a phone call. Now, there's always the emergency, and then I'm going to have a big issue thereafter. But I really do try and leave my phone downstairs so I can get a decent night's sleep. So I wouldn't use my alarm on my phone. Number 2, I realized that in November, I'm going to be married 30 years. And my wife and I dated for a year before we were engaged for a year, and we're now going to be married 30 years in November. So that's almost 32 years. I've had my alarm clock longer than I've had my wife.
Wow. You're like Jack McCaffrey with his tape recorder.
My alarm clock predates my wife, and we've been together for 32 years. And there are 2 reasons for it. Number 1, yeah, I'm cheap. The thing works. Why should I replace it? Why should I pay to replace it when the thing works? You only replace things when they need to be replaced, not because, well, I've had it a long time. And number 2, yeah, I'm a little superstitious. Like I got up 40 minutes late today. It wasn't the alarm clock's fault. It was the fact that we took a power hit. And if we don't take a power hit, the alarm would have went off exactly when it was supposed to at 6:25. You got anything like that? You're still clinging to it because you're afraid if you swap it out, you're going to get a lesser one. It's been damn good to you for a long time, and you're a little afraid to go down another road.
The only thing close is I keep, which drives my wife crazy. I keep media guides. So I have like media guides from 25 years ago in my garage.
They've kind of put up new stats since, John.
Yeah.
They become a little dated.
I don't know why. One is, when I first started, I guess, it was more of a remembrance for things you've done, things you've covered. Same thing with credentials, that too. I never throw away a credential. Like people throw them away. I never throw away a credential of anything I've ever covered. I don't know why. It drives my wife insane. I don't do anything with them. Like Damo has them framed, put them up in a front. I just have them in a box somewhere, and I have way too many at this stage. But I can't throw them away. I don't know why.
One thing I'll never lack for is I throw the credential away. But like yesterday, I got a credential to go to the Phillies game. It was a one-day pass. So what the hell am I going to keep the thing for? I throw the laminated piece of cardboard out. But I always save the lanyard. If I've got one lanyard, I've got 120.
I saved the lanyards too. So I have 100 million lanyards as well.
I got a lot of those. I throw the credentials out, but I save the lanyards for whatever stupid reason. All right, back to football. McMullen and McDonald here with you on Birds 365. Zangaro is going to join us coming up in less than 20 minutes now. All right, you ran down the list for us of the Eagle draft visits, and you had them at 16 out of 30. Is that rule still in place? That if you want to, you can get a local college kid in and it doesn't count as
they don't count. Yeah, local kids don't count. I had a couple local guys as well. Kid from Princeton. There's a South Jersey kid, Philadelphia kid. They don't count. I'm trying to look them up real quick.
No, I'm trying to
Jaquan Amos, who's a defensive back, spent time at Villanova, finished up at Ball State. Harvard running back Eden Bourget, who's from South Jersey, Franklinville, I believe.
So it's not just where you went to school; it's where you played high school ball too.
It could be both. Princeton, for instance, they looked at the receiver, who's actually got some size and speed. I don't know how to. Andre Isosivas, I think he's from Hawaii.
What'd you say?
Exactly. Princeton receiver. It could be either. So Princeton's obviously local for the Eagles, but he's not a local kid. Could be one or the other.
Okay.
It could be a South, in the case it was a South Jersey kid and a Philly kid.
Here would be my question to you or Roger Goodell if we had Roger on the line right now. Who gets to claim Alabama players as local players? There's not an NFL team in Alabama. Are the Saints the closest to Alabama?
I think they would be the closest, or Houston, one of the two.
Jacksonville, maybe on the northern part of Florida. Who gets to go? Yeah, all those Alabama guys are. They don't count. We can bring CJ.
I don't think anybody
count as a pre-draft visit.
I don't think anybody gets to claim Alabama.
Really?
Yeah, I don't have that.
If I'm an Alabama player, I'm pissed off at that. Why wouldn't I get an extra free pass just because we happen to be at a university that isn't close to an NFL city? That's unfair. Princeton guys are in a better position than Alabama guys for the draft.
I don't think they are. I don't think the Alabama guys are too worried. When 32 teams show up at your pro day.
Yeah, that's the pro day. But did Princeton have a pro day? I'm sure they attached to someone else.
Yeah, but I'm sure, 5, 6, maybe 7 teams show. Although they have a legit prospect, so maybe a handful showed up. But yeah, there's certain teams. 32 teams are there. Alabama's obviously one of those teams. So they're not hurting for opportunity, Alabama.
True. But it's an anomaly that I think is quasi unfair.
Well, it's a stupid rule. Yeah. I mean, it's, it's one of those things you fudge. Sometimes, obviously it's rare, but every once in a while you'll have a kid from the Ivy League who's a legit prospect, and you can bring him in without a top 30 visit. So it can be, played with as everything in the NFL
And
is.
if there's a loophole to be found, go ahead and find it and take advantage of it. And this is something I want to run by both you and Dave Zangaro when we get Dave up here in a second. But let me ask you first. Right now, who is considered the Eagles' secondary coach?
They don't have an official secondary coach. And as a matter of fact, I looked at their website. We still haven't talked to Sean Desai or Brian Johnson since they were named coordinators.
Yeah. What happened to that? We're going to announce all the coaches' day. They haven't
well,
gotten
that's
to
the
that yet.
thing.
It's going to come after the draft.
I think they're going to do it before, but we'll see. I mean, they haven't. That's the reason they've given. They want to wait until they get the entire staff together. Now, Tabor Johnson, who's used to coach at Temple, another guy with Temple roots. He was a defensive coordinator. Was reported as being hired as a defensive backs coach. Now, I don't know if that means he's going to be the replacing Denard Wilson, or he could be the assistant DB coach and they could elevate DK McDonald to be the secondary coach who was the assistant. They haven't announced it yet.
And they hired a nickel cornerback coach, right?
Yeah, they hired who also has a background with Temple as well. So they have a new sort of position as well. But until they announce it, we don't even know if that's official. That's how it was reported. So right now they have 3 names in the mix. And we'll see how they are on the totem pole. To be determined.
And again, as a beat guy, you're more informed and know this better than a guy like I have and or would. This is weird, right? Usually when you look at the calendar and putting a staff together, that you would prefer to have it done and set before you even start free agency. You certainly want to have it done and set and in place before you get into your heavy draft work. The fact that you've still got questions about how the staff is going to look, are they finished? Are they going to hire one more guy? To be this late in the football calendar is not standard operating procedure, is it, John?
No, it is very, very late. In fact, I haven't gone through the other 31 teams, but I'm very comfortable saying the Eagles are probably last here. Now, part of that is obviously they had a long season, so they had a late start, and they had more upheaval than even Kansas City. I mean, they lost both coordinators. They're the ones that suffered all the attrition on the coaching staff. But it's very weird, and it's very late to not have the entire coaching staff put together. Now, from their standpoint, they probably have it put together, and for whatever reason, they don't want to announce it. I hope it's not because they want to keep coordinators away from us, because if they can't handle us, how much confidence do you have in them?
Right.
Let's be honest. What are we going to do, Jody, to these people? What are we going to do? I realize a lot of people don't like us, but what the heck are we going to do to Sean Desai and Brian Johnson? I mean, it doesn't make a lot of sense.
It doesn't, and that's why I asked the question. I was kind of surprised by it that they haven't come out with the formal listing of their staff. And if they're running in fear from the press, that's not a good sign. I don't think it's good. And if it sounds like doom and gloom, Eagles fans, don't get worked up. I'm not saying that. John's not saying that. Oh my God, the Eagles are doomed to failure because they don't have their coach. It's not that big a deal. It's just weird. And that's why I brought it up to John.
Yeah, it's weird. And by the way, they're not scared of us. I joked around. They don't want us there. They don't want us there. That's the bottom line. And they want to proceed in secrecy. And the more they can go and proceed in secret. I don't get it, but whatever. It's not state craft. It's not, spy craft, but they seem to think it is.
But let me take this a step further. And again, for you Nick Sirianni fans out there, you're not going to want to hear me say this, but sorry, folks, it's a fact, Jack, or at least it is in my opinion. Nick always strives for the competitive advantage. And a lot of time that is with keeping information close to the vest where other teams, other coaches are more willing to put their cards on the table. And we've seen Sirianni do it for 2 years running, that there are certain things he just isn't going to answer, questions he won't answer, things he won't talk about because he believes in his own mind he gives him a competitive advantage. Is that one of the things we're looking at here with the coaching staff?
I wish I could give you an answer. I have no stinking idea. If it is, he's not getting any kind of competitive advantage. He has mentioned in the past we have a little bit of uncertainty with Sean Desai. But then he'll say in the next paragraph, you read a transcript, he'll say, oh, it's going to be the same. Maybe claim it's going to be different. Everything's going to be similar. He did mention one time about, his rookie season. Remember when they went into Atlanta, Jody made a big deal about people not knowing what they were going to do.
First game of the season, right? Wasn't the first game Sirianni ever coached again?
Yeah, his rookie season.
In Atlanta, yeah.
He said, we have an advantage because nobody knows what we're going to do. He made a big deal out of it. And they played very well in Atlanta. And I think it had more to do with Atlanta.
Oh, by the way, Atlanta was in the same exact situation. Smith was coaching his first game. So how much of an advantage? They might not have known what you were going to do, but you couldn't have known what the Falcons were going to do either.
Yeah. And the advantage was you just had a much better team than Atlanta. And you kind of ran them off the field. Everybody was excited. But then that turned into 2-5. So, what are we really talking about? So. But he does believe it. So, it's kind of like a sugar pill, Jody. If you think it's helping you, maybe it does help you.
Oh, sugar pill. Somebody used that exact same line. I know who it was. Peter King said it about Kyrie Irving, that when her NBA team's going to realize that that's all that Kyrie Irving is, it's a sugar pill, that he doesn't actually make your teams better. The Mavs, when they acquired Kyrie Irving, were 6th in the West. Ended up 11th in the West, dropped 5 slots by adding Kyrie Irving. And oh, by the way, Kyrie Irving might have, read it within the last month, maybe the best nickname in the NBA this year. World be flat for Kyrie Irving rather than
World be flat, baby.
Rather than world be nickname. Free. Kyrie, take that, Dallas, for your acquisition of.
Still waiting for that first person to sail off the side of the earth.
It's going to be this week, John. My alarm clock told me this is the week that somebody's actually going to sail off the side of the earth and be over and done with. All right, he's McMullen. I'm McDonald. Mac guys here on Birds 365. We haven't had Dave Zangaro in a good couple weeks. He was out in Arizona, so we missed him on one of the weeks we were going to punch him up. It's been a while since we talked to Dave Z. Looking forward to that. Dave Zangaro of NBC Sports Philly going to join us next here on Birds 365.
Imagine for a moment that you went to work today and when you came home, you were catastrophically injured. Your life and your family's life. That's what happened to union construction worker Mike Little.
I was scared of what the end was going to be, but to be 100% honest with you, I knew I was going to be all right just by talking with Brian. In my heart, I just knew everything was going to be all right.
Call the firm and find out why they say, "We got this." Call 215-458-2222.
Heading down the shore. Have a ball once more.
Here, imaginations run wild and time stands still. Because here, you can find the best of the Jersey Shore, all on one 5-mile island. So leave the old you behind and get lost in the woods.
Wild, wild, wild wood days.
They're carving them up and good play calling along the way. First and goal at the 6.
On the field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
Get your MAGA Mac guys. McMullen and McDonald hanging with you on Birds 365, the JAKIB Media YouTube channel. John McMullen, a YouTube star, also a very well-respected writer. Our next guest, Dave Zangaro, is going to join us coming up in a couple of minutes. A TV star and a very well-respected writer. Yeah, I'm just a talking head and a radio guy. So I will at some point on one of my shows, and maybe here on Birds 365, actually have a mock draft. We are 17 days out from the NFL draft. John does his for SI. Are you going to do one for Philly Voice as well, or are you just SI?
Just a mock, just SI.
SI. And Krause will probably.
I do not like my mock drafts in case that hasn't come across. Yeah, not a big fan.
And I love mock drafts. I absolutely love them. I don't put as much stock into them as some people do that take them as like the Bible. But I love the fact that you've got so many different guys out there who do them now. Maybe it was yesterday. I type in 2023 mock draft into Google, and then you get the drop down of how many you visited. I'm like 40 deep. I go to so many different mock drafts just to compare and contrast. That's the fun of it, to see who's saying what and who's out in left field and who's agreeing with what you said. I did see one yesterday, John, because we brought his name up plenty last week here on the draft. That I do have a little bit of a agreement with some of the guys we've had on, and it'll be fun to see what Zangaro thinks. Nolan Smith, the pass rushing specialist.
Yeah, he's one. He's in. He's been in. He's one of those defensive linemen.
One of those defensive guys who's.
And by the way, when I say defensive lineman, I hope people understand I'm talking about edge rushers.
Edge rushers, yeah. Linebackers / defensive end. Come on, get with the program. Nolan Smith, I don't think makes sense for the Eagles, because I think he's Hassan Reddick 2.0. And if you've got Hassan on one side, does Nolan Smith's fit on the other? Not for me. I did see one draft that had him going at number 30. that the Eagles were getting him with their second first-round pick, not their number 10, but their second. Now, if that's the case, if you've already landed a star player with your first pick and you get Nolan Smith at 30, yeah, you can count me in. I would not take him at number 10.
Little bit of a redundancy from a trade standpoint. We got Dave in the green room. Let's see if Zander can bring him up. Dave Zangaro, NBC Sports Philadelphia. Good to see you, buddy. Jody and I were just talking about the draft. We'll start there. The top 30 visits, we were talking about Nolan Smith as one of them. But from a larger perspective, Dave, I wanted to get your thoughts because we were debating it. You've been through a lot of these draft processes. When you look at the top 30 names, I got 16. You might have more at this stage, but somewhere in that range. What do you take out of them? Do you take anything? I take themes. What are they looking at? Positions. What do you take
sometimes, but sometimes it's like it's a medical thing, or it's like you want to check out a guy's character. So it's not as simple as, oh, they're interested in these players because they brought them in. Sometimes they just have like unanswered questions. If a prospect is super clean and they know everything they need to know about him, then they're not going to waste the top 30 on him. So
yeah,
something to keep in mind. You can try to follow it a little bit, but sometimes you end up chasing your tail because it doesn't really amount to a lot.
All right. One of those guys they brought in was Nolan Smith. I was just talking about that with John. I don't see him as a viable number 10 pick for the Eagles. Not that he's not a talented football player. He is. But if you're talking about a team that already has Hassan Reddick on its roster, a smaller, speed rushing edge player, would you want to pair him with a guy like Nolan Smith, who seems to have the same kind of traits that he does? Doesn't make sense to me. Do you think he's a legitimate possibility for the Eagles at number 10?
Yeah, I mean, it's not like pairing him with him isn't, to me, it doesn't really encapsulate it, because if we agree that edge is a position they could add in this draft, and I think we all kind of agree that it's a position they value, it's a pretty good draft for edge players. They're going to rotate these guys. So, I mean, that's like a philosophical question, right? Like, is the 10th pick worth a guy who's not going to start? And for the Eagles, it probably is, if it's at a position like this that they really value and that they know they're going to play the guy. It's different than, if they draft an offensive tackle, he's probably sitting this year. But if they draft an edge player, he's going to play. He's going to play significant snaps. The other part of this is, like, we think this defense is going to be very similar to what Jonathan Gannon ran. We have all those indications, but don't know how Sean Desai feels about some of these player profiles necessarily. The body build, to me, like, that doesn't prevent me from drafting Nolan Smith, because you're going to rotate these guys anyway. They're probably going to flip sides at times. For the most part, the edge rushers stay on their sides, but you're going to flip sides at times. So I think there is some importance to having different body types at those positions, because you don't want offensive tackles to get comfortable with, like, facing one guy that they rotate between. But I don't think that would prevent me from taking him if I thought he was the best player.
Yeah, that's also a position, Dave, where the league as a whole, you'll always see somebody, I always go back to Cleveland Burrow. Everybody's, he's going to be in the 20s. He ends up going 4. Marcus Davenport's the name I throw out there. The Saints traded a future 1 to get people fall in love with edge rushers. So, most people could have Lucas Van Ness in the 20s. The Eagles might go, nah, that's our guy at number 10. If you believe in an edge rusher, that's a position where, the old adage, either get the quarterback or get to the quarterback. That was the beauty of the Eagles. They had the quarterback and they got to the quarterback. It's pretty important to do both. So that's a position, to call it valuable is probably an understatement.
Yeah, I will say this, though, with the Eagles, they wouldn't have drafted Cleveland Farrell that high.
No, they wouldn't have.
They would
But
have.
but I mean, certain teams, it's just one guy. They fall in love with.
That's the thing with the Eagles is that they're trying to maximize value at every position, really, except for quarterback. You know, if they have the quarterback they want, they're going to take them. But not in this draft. I'm saying in general. But with every other position, they kind of look at it from a value standpoint. Like, you know, if we can get this guy at 15, we're not going to take him at 10.
Yeah.
Or at least we'll try not to. We'll try to maximize value. We'll get a pick back. We'll move around the board. Howie does that very well. He has a really good feel for what the rest of the league is doing. And that's a part of the draft that I think some teams just fail to do. You know, and I say this a ton. If people have heard me talk about the draft before, they've heard me say this. But most teams, it's like get the best player. Howie is get the best player at the best value. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But it's like a layer to the draft that I think a lot of teams are missing.
I do agree with you on the fact that Howie plays Monty Hall better than anybody else on draft day and has good information and good feel on what the rest of the league's going to do. Is that because the Eagles have lost as many front office people as they have over the last couple of years that Howie's got some dirt on these guys and go, yeah, you know, I let you walk, but if you don't tell me who you're going to take in this spot, I'm going to release these pictures. How the hell does he do that? How does he know what other teams are going to do?
Yeah, I don't think it's that. But look, he also does have a pretty good understanding of like the way these guys think. And I think that factors into it. He's very good at gathering information and his staff is very good at that. And sometimes they're going to be wrong. You know, like the draft is all about smoke screens and trying to read through them. And look, Howie's been doing this for a lot longer than a lot of other GMs.
That's true.
And experience matters. He was the youngest GM in the league when he got hired. And I mean, we're 13 years later. He's done this for a long time now. So minus a year. He's done this for a long time. He has a good feel for it on draft day. And it doesn't mean he's making the right picks all the time. We've seen some disasters, but in terms of maximizing the value of the draft, I'm not sure there's anyone who does it better.
No. And you say minus a year. I think that year really helped him. I don't know if Howie Roseman 2.0 becomes Howie Roseman 2.0 without that year. I mean, I do think he sort of reflected on what he did poorly. Not that he does everything perfectly, but he's a different guy now. It's not just the experience, as you mentioned. That's a big part of it. I think he did learn from being set off to the other side of the building.
Yeah, I agree with that. I always say, like, if you write some memoir, it's going to be my year away, the Howie Roseman memoir.
My year getting a raise and getting to travel wherever I wanted to travel. By
pretty
Howie
much.
Roseman.
The most impressive thing about him coming back from that was going after Carson in 2016, which I still say worked out.
I agree.
It's a weird thing, but like to be that aggressive, getting back in that chair and saying, like, I think a lot of guys would have been like, I got this job back. I don't want to lose it. I'll just play it safe. And he didn't. And I always give him credit for that. He was so aggressive that year. And it started before Carr. It started kind of unloading everything Chip did and undoing it. Maybe there was a little spite in there, but I think there were wise decisions from a football standpoint too. And just like how aggressive he was, he hit the ground running that year. And that was always so impressive to me because I think a lot of guys in that position would have been like, man, I got a second chance. I'm going to play this safe and hold on to this job. And he didn't do that. He went for it. And if he drafted the wrong quarterback and Carson wasn't very good early, he might lose his job. You know, so he banked on it. He mortgaged a lot to go get him. And look, it didn't work out in the end, but it worked out enough to win them a Super Bowl. So I give him a ton of credit for just how aggressive he was when he got back in that chair.
When Howie took his year abroad, didn't he spend a week with Ted Lasso? I think that was part of the Howie learning curve.
He did spend with the Met. I always forget his name. I remember Cashman. Maybe you remember, Dave. R.C. Buford he visited with, and then the Manchester United guy, but I don't remember his name.
I don't know his name.
That's not Ted Lasso's team. I thought it was him. I'm getting confused here.
AFC Richmond. Sadly, I know that.
If Howie made it work for him, more power to him. Here's my draft question, Dave, and I don't think we've discussed this with you. You've discussed it on the air. I've seen you plenty on NBC Sports, and we've discussed it plenty here on Birds 365. To Bijan or not to Bijan at number 10? That's what everybody wants as far as
Peter
questions asked.
throwing a log on the fire this morning, Dave.
I haven't seen that. What did he say?
He said a
He said they should take him at number 10 and tell the world, dare to stop
And
the offense.
I had the same reaction as Dave.
Yeah, I mean,
we were just talking about value, Dave.
What
we
are
were
we
just
doing?
talking about value.
It's not like we spin our. I feel like we do this every year. We spin our wheels talking about something that we know is not going to happen.
Yeah,
it's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
Look, Bijan's a great player, and he'd be good in this offense. I have a hard time believing they're going to do it. Should they do it? Maybe that's a different discussion. But we know they're not. So, I feel like I get it. This is what the draft is for. It's fun. We're all having fun. We do mock drafts. We talk about it. But realistically, are the Eagles going to draft Bijan Robinson at 10? No, I don't think they are. I have a hard time believing they are. You can make the case. You can do all the arguments like, okay, they have a good offense. They're one piece away. They have 2 first-round picks. Robinson might be a special player. At the end of the day, I don't think they're going to do it. I think they're going to be too many other good players, very good players, elite players at positions they value more. So I don't think they're going to do it.
Before I get back to the draft, because Jody brought this up, and I'm going to get your take on it, Dave. Wherever we are, April 10th, the official date, the Eagles have not announced their stinking coaching staff. Unless they did it while I was on the air in the first hour. We have still not talked to Sean Desai or Brian Johnson, the new coordinators. Why? What are they doing? Now, obviously, they got a late start, but what is the thought? Because it's not like I think they don't have the plan, whether it's going to be Tabor Johnson as secondary coach or DK McDonald. I don't know, but they know who's going to be there. What is this about?
Well, Nick is now interviewing his 200th defensive quality control assistant. So,
the owner gave him credit for that. His diligence in interviewing people to make sure he gets just the right guy.
And look, I'm joking about that, but it is important, and it's something that Nick is so in lockstep with the owner on. Whereas, like, you think back to Doug, and like that was one of the reasons he got fired was because he didn't want to go through that process. So, like, I don't think that's lip service from the owner. Like, he really likes that about Nick, and he likes the process he goes through. And we'll see if it works. I mean, none of that means he's going to hire the right guys, but at least there's a why behind it, and he can explain it to Jeffrey, like what he went through to get these guys and why he liked DJ Elliott as his linebackers coach. He can go through that whole process and explain it. Don't know why they don't have coaching staff yet. We were supposed to talk to the coordinators the week after the combine.
Yeah.
And that just didn't happen. And then I think they were like, let's finalize the roster. And now they're like, well, the draft is coming. We don't want them to get asked draft questions. So, doesn't make any sense to me. But eventually we'll talk to these guys. I'm excited to talk to Sean Desai. At least we know Brian Johnson a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't think like Sean Desai is going to start answering a ton of scheme questions, but I'd like to know philosophy stuff. I'd like to learn a little bit more about him, and hopefully we get to do that soon.
Let me ask you about Sean Desai, because you brought a name up earlier that I want to revisit. Edmonds at safety. When he signed, both John and I the next day said here on Birds 365, really? Because we got so ingrained in Gannon that he has a system and certain players fit his system, and he's going to get the type of players who can do exactly what he wants. He's not going to be a square peg in a round hole guy. But then they signed Edmonds, and he just didn't seem to fit what the Eagles safeties look like these last 2 years under Gannon, that he was a box safety and a guy who's going to come up and make tackles and maybe even blitz a little bit, which Gannon almost never did with his secondary players. And I optimistically thought, a coach with an open mind, that he's going to be flexible, that he's going to know that there's more than one way to skin a cat on defense, which was one of my main critiques of Jonathan Gannon. Even though I was a fan, I thought he was a rigid guy. Players have to fit my system. Was I overly optimistic? Was it just Howie trying to give himself a safety net at the safety position? What did you read into the fact that Edmonds wasn't, at least in his career and what his stats said he wasn't necessarily a guy who would fit with the former Eagles defensive system?
If they had paid him, I might agree with you. I might think that they didn't pay him. I mean,
that $2 million didn't impress you, huh?
Well, it's $600,000 guaranteed. He has the same amount of guaranteed money as Greedy Williams. So they did not tie themselves to Terrell Edmonds. So because of that, like, I think you kind of said safety net. I think the idea is in free agency, you just try to fill the holes. That way you're not reaching when the draft comes. And that's kind of the impression I got from Edmonds. And maybe he'll be fine. Maybe he'll be a starter, but they're not tied to him. So, if they had signed him, if he was like a better player and he played that style and they signed him to like, a 3-year, whatever, $20 million deal, then I'd say, okay, now they're not tying themselves to a system. They're going to play this guy. I can't even guarantee he'll be on the roster. I think he will be. I think he's a leader to be a starter right now, but the guaranteed money is just not there. So we'll see about that. But I agree with your assessment about his play. Like, he's kind of has been a strong safety. And at least in Gannon's system, like he wanted those positions relatively interchangeable. But they have some options there, some fun things they can do with Edmonds and with Avonte, because Avonte Maddox is such a versatile guy that he can play the nickel, he can play safety. And the one guy everyone keeps talking about in the draft is Brian Branch, who has that safety nickel versatility as well. I couldn't see them taking him at 10, but at 30, now you're cooking with a little bit there.
And everybody says they've never taken a safety in the first round, Dave. But I hate when people bring that stuff up, because it's always about the year. It's always about the player. But, you can call him a defensive back because he's got versatility, and then they didn't take a safety again. You can go about it that way. There's a lot of ways you can go about it. But with Sean Desai in general, he's going to play big scheme, just like Jonathan did. And there's some good to that. There's some bad to it. But when you look at replacing 5 starters here, and there's a lot of people that gave Jonathan Gannon a lot of credit. There's a lot of people that disliked him because of the style of the defense. But the bottom line was number 2 defense in the NFL, number 1 passing defense, 70 sacks. There's no way Sean Desai, if Jonathan Gannon was back, if they raised the salary cap ceiling $100 million and they got all those players back, they weren't going to match that. Are the expectations going to be just too much for Sean Desai in Philadelphia?
It's a tough situation. You're right. And that's the thing. No matter what, they're not going to be as good. They don't have the personnel. So I hope Desai gets judged fairly because of that. Like, when we're looking out there and we don't see Javon Hargrave and we don't see CJ and we don't see TJ Edwards, that matters. They lost some significant pieces. But I think if we see, coaching's not about like getting good play out of good players. It's about like getting more out of lesser players. So
a little bit more.
If Desai can do that with some of these guys, then I think it will show up, and it might not show up in the stat sheet, but like, I think we'll see it. I think if people are realistic about it, they'll see if he's a good coach or not. It won't be numbers though, because the numbers aren't going to be as good. And like the sack, they're not going to get 70 sacks. No, it's just that doesn't happen.
Dave, your partner in crime and in podcast, Ruben Frank, had a interesting take in his latest Rube's observations about the challenge for Nick Sirianni here in year number 3. And he went back and looked at several Eagles' most recent coaches past And year 3 was a challenging one for a lot of them. And its line of logic made sense. You've shown your whole playbook in your first 2 years. You've given all your motivational speeches in the first 2 years. If guys are still there, been there for your first 2, 3 can be a challenging year. And it has come back and bit a couple of Eagles former coaches in the butt. But I'm sure there are other coaches who have actually had their best year in year number 3. How much do you buy into what Rube's selling? That year 3, just for coaches in general, and Nick Sirianni specifically, is a challenging one.
I don't know if it's year 3. I look at the challenge for Nick, and they lost a lot of talent. There's a reason teams go through Super Bowl hangovers. It's a lot physically, emotionally to come back from that. And the whole structure of this team's about to change from a salary cap perspective. I look at last year and everything went well. Like everything was like it worked out perfectly, and they still couldn't win a Super Bowl. And it's so hard to win in this league. And there are so many things that just aren't going to go that well this year. Right? Like it's impossible to get that seat. That was the best team I've ever covered.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that team was, to me, infinitely better as a whole.
Wasn't even close. I agree with you.
Than 2017, and they still couldn't win. It's really hard to win in this league. Are they going to get 70 sacks again? Probably not. Is Jalen going to play that well again? He might play. It's hard for me to imagine he's going to be that good again. There's just going to be some regression.
Health-wise, too. I mean, you think about
health, the entire team's health. Yeah, they didn't lose any. They had 22 of 22 starters in the Super Bowl. That's unheard of. So I think there's just going to be some natural regression to the mean. And it doesn't mean that Nick's not doing a good job. I think it'll tell us a lot about Nick, honestly, to keep getting that buy-in level from his players when things don't go well. Because everything went well last year. I mean, they were juggernauts. So I think we all have to kind of temper expectations this year. They should be a good team. They still have a talented roster. They have the best quarterback in the conference. They have a good head coach. But they have 2 new coordinators. They have a ton of new starters. They're going to deal with more injuries. So I think those are the challenges. They happen to have they're happening in year 3. I don't know if year 3 matters as much as it's like this is what the situation they're in right now.
Yeah, I'm with you. Regression to the mean. I use that term all the time. It's going to happen in a bunch of different areas, and how they handle it. He might do a better coaching job and win 11 games next year.
Very possible. But
yeah. We mentioned a little bit about Edmonds, but I want to talk about the group as a whole, how he's gone through. He called it lottery tickets. So, if you look at all the one-year guys they signed for $2 million or less, if I were to tell you one guy is the Powerball, potentially, who's that guy? And if one guy's the bar scratch-off, it's not going to amount to anything. Who's that guy, Dave?
The Powerball is Rashad Penny. Because at least we've seen him do it. Like he's a Pro Bowl caliber player, can't stay on the field. And it'd be foolish to think that all of a sudden he's going to stay on the field here, but that's why he's a lottery ticket. But at least with him, like we know when he's on the field, he's a very good player. Yes. Whereas the other guys, it's like, well, we don't know. We just don't know what they're going to be long term. But with him, if I've been a big fan of his, so maybe I'm a little biased there. He's the Powerball. Man, I'm trying to think. Morrow is like, you know what he is. He's not going to be great, but he at least played last year. He'll give you snaps. Who's the one I'm missing? So we have him, Greedy.
You got Justin Evans, who I think is a better fit for what the Eagles want to do defensively, at least from a trait standpoint. But he hasn't, he missed 3 years. I mean,
and he was a backup last year. It's not like he started last year. At least Morrow started last year, played every snap. I mean, Evans might be the one for me where I'm like, I don't know if this guy's going to be on the team.
Yeah.
And that's not like I haven't seen him play yet. But if I had to pick one of the guys in that group that isn't going to be on the team,
probably Evans.
Probably Evans. Because I think at least Greedy offers you some upside.
Yeah.
I was thinking Marcus Mariota won't go 0-2 like the Eagles backup quarterback did this past year, Gardner Minshew. All right, Dave, don't know. We may or may not ask you to come back before the draft. No, you're going to get busy. We'll probably ask, but you might not be able to come on because you get that much busier when we get closer to the draft. So I'm going to put you on the spot right here, right now, assuming, which is a massive assumption, because chances are the Eagles won't draft at either 10 or 30. Then Howie will trade both picks, either up or down or sideways. But saying they stay at 30, at 10 and 30, who do you think are the most likely guys to be picked in those two spots?
I'm going to not play your game. I'm going to say they're going to trade up from 10.
All right, you're going to dictate terms. Good on you.
Yeah.
Jalen Carter, then. It's got to be Jalen Carter, right?
Well, I think Jalen Carter or Tyree Wilson.
Tyree Wilson, all right.
Yeah. If they can go up, and they have a track record of doing this. Like they'll target a guy, they'll trade up and get him. And I know that there's this thought that they need to like get more picks. They have a pretty talented roster. Like I don't know if they draft all these players, they might not have room for them on the roster. So
they got plenty of room on defense, Dave. They got to replace 5 starters, and you can say Milton Williams will pencil in, Nakobe Dean will pencil in.
Yeah, but I mean, if you can target a guy like Jalen Carter or Tyree Wilson, I think they'd do it. We've seen did it last year with Jordan Davis. They moved up a few picks because he fell into their range. I could see that happening again. And then if they still have the 30th pick, it's tough because I don't know what they're going to do. Say they take a defensive lineman there, I could see.
That's what you just said. You dictated terms. You're taking a D lineman. So what's left at 30?
And left at 30. I'm going to have some fun. Big tight end from Georgia.
Oh!
No shot. No chance.
Why not?
No chance. I couldn't even start for Georgia. And you're going to take him in the first round?
Van Ness didn't start. Yeah. You're going to take him at 10?
Yeah.
No.
That is tremendous disrespect for the great Jack Stoll, Dave Zangaro.
I look at this offense. I think they need one more pass catcher. Doesn't have to be a receiver.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be a receiver.
I don't think it should be a receiver.
I like it. Out of the box thinking. I like it.
Get yourself that 12 personnel package, some teeth.
I like it.
It's
not going to happen.
If I'm taking a tight end, I'd take the kid from Oregon State before I would take the kid from Georgia. The Utah kid's probably the best tight end. He's going to be gone. Well, no, let me make it a question. Do you think any tight ends will be taken in the first 30 picks?
Yeah.
I think the kid from Notre Dame is going.
This is a pretty good tight end draft.
Yeah. Now, how about that, Dave? Take the kid from Notre Dame and let Dallas Goedert play the slot. He's a great blocker. So if you want, one of the things with Dallas Goedert, he does both so well, but he's such a good blocker at times. You don't have him flexed out.
You know what's funny? So I had this theory that I ran by Jason Michael last year about Dallas that I said, I always wondered if his blocking ability has hurt his stats.
Yeah.
Because you got to keep him in line so much. And Jason Michael said, I actually don't think so. He said, I think that a lot of Dallas's opportunity in the pass game comes because teams have to respect his blocking ability and then they can leak him out, that's why I like talking to these guys. They're a lot smarter than me. Stuff. It was something that like I had never thought about in those terms where it's like, sometimes we ask them to stay in line and block, but that opens up things in the pass game for them because teams have to worry about that.
Yeah, it's interesting. You opened my eyes. I didn't think about tight end. Now I'm starting to think about Michael Mayer because he can catch the football too.
We've got 3 more weeks. Let's keep the. We got to keep something to talk about.
Yeah,
all right.
I like it.
Since we're going down the road of just check the Eagles' track record, and if they haven't done it before, they'll never do it again. When was the last time they took a tight end in the first round?
I don't know, but they've taken them. I mean, they took Dallas Goedert at 49. They took Zach Ertz in the second round. Like, it's not like they devalued.
They took Miles Sanders in the second round. They took Shady McCoy in the second round. But there's no friggin' way they're taking Bijan Robinson in the first round because Eagles never take a running back in the first round. Either it's differentiated between the first and second round or it's not.
Well, it's differentiated between 10 and 30. I mean, that's different.
Yeah, that's
inherently different.
And the Eagles would have drafted Christian McCaffrey. They would have drafted him.
Things worked out. They got Derek Barnett.
Yeah, thanks. They worked out well. You're
Thank
right.
you. Thank you very much.
Zangaro. Follow Dave on Twitter. You see it there at Zangaro NBCS. I always screw that at NBCS. Read them. NBC Sports Philadelphia. I saw, for those who don't know, Dave is our resident world traveler. Not too much the world since the pandemic. So where'd you go this year, Dave?
I was out in Arizona for the owners meeting, so I just I stayed out there for an extra week. Did a little road trip.
Nice.
It was nice. Yeah, I went up to Grand Canyon and Capitol Reef and Zion. So I packed in like 7 days of just nonstop, but it was fun.
7 days. And was the best part getting to pet the llama at the owners meeting?
I did not know Kemsky took that photo, and then that photo ended up on television. But when you're at an NFL party and there are llamas there, you go pet one.
That's true.
And or if you've been drinking at that NFL party, you get caught
No
petting
comment.
the llama. And let it be on record, Dave Zangaro took an obligatory shot at Derek Barnett, not me. Because 19 out of every 20 times it's me.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Dave,
Dave, for letting
Jody
it
is
be
not a
someone
big
else
Derek
other than
Barnett
me.
fan. Yeah.
DZ, great stuff. Appreciate you coming on board. Thank you much. And like I said, we'll probably ask you on before the draft again. If you can do it, we'll appreciate having you. If we can't, we'll understand. Thanks for jumping in today.
All right, take care, guys.
Thanks,
Dave
Dave.
Zangaro, NBC Sports Philadelphia. Appreciate him taking a Derek Barnett shot. All right, Johnny Mac coming back with Johnny Mac. Mac and Mac guys got to put a bow on the show here on Birds 365.
Imagine for a moment that you went to work today and when you came home, you were catastrophically injured. Your life and your family's life. That's what happened to union construction worker Mike Little.
I was scared of what the end was going to be, but to be 100% honest with you, I knew I was going to be all right just by talking with Brian. In my heart, I just knew everything was going to be all right.
Call the firm and find out why they say, "We got this." Call 215-458-2222.
Heading down the shore. Have a ball once more.
Here, imaginations run wild and time stands still. Because here, you can find the best of the Jersey Shore, all on one 5-mile island. So leave the old you behind and get lost in the woods.
Wild, wild, wild wood days.
They're carving them up and good play calling along the way. First and goal at the 6.
On the field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
All right, Johnny Mac with Johnny Mac, Mac and Mac guys. We're wrapping up a Monday edition of Birds 365. On the last player that Dave Zangaro mentioned, chalk me up as a non-Darnell Washington fan. If he goes in the first round, he will be overrated and overdrafted. I'll give you his numbers, John. 45 catches, 670 yards, and 3 touchdowns. And that's not his past year. That's his entire 3 years at Georgia. I know you and I debate this from time to time. I am much more a production guy than you are. You'll give in to physical capability.
Yeah, he's a physical freak. That's what I said. He's all about projection. All about projection. But he's a physical freak. Now, that kid from Notre Dame, Michael Mayer, he's like a finished product. I mean, that dude is just good. And it's interesting. You mentioned mock drafts. Right during the break, Rick Saratella's latest mock draft delivered to my inbox. He's got the Eagles taking Peter Skoronski at number 10.
That's what he said with us here on the show last week.
Probably
got Saratella. He's a man of his word. He brings his true opinions to Birds 365 and then puts them on his mock draft.
Miles Murphy, number 30. Now, that would be a great pick.
Murphy falling to 30?
Yeah, that would be a great pick.
No shot.
I agree.
Couldn't possibly be more ecstatic if they got Miles Murphy at 30.
I agree. Dave's thought process was interesting because we've been talking about third receiver for a while. It is interesting. It is out of the box. It doesn't have to be, especially when you have Dallas Goedert. It doesn't have to be a receiver, a wideout. It could be a tight end. So if you have a Washington who's a physical freak and you pair him up with Dallas Goedert, but I'd rather pair up Michael Mayer, but I don't think he'd get to 30, to be honest. It is a good tight end draft. And that other kid from Georgia.
Oh, Bowers, I want him next year.
Yeah,
I'll take him now. Can we draft him, wait a year, redshirt him, and not have him on the roster?
Yeah.
Oh, I'd go there with number 30 in a heartbeat.
If he could get the USC quarterback and the Georgia tight end for next year, you'll be cooking with some gas.
Exactly right. All right, brother. Who we got locked up? We got one spot already in for tomorrow. I'm forgetting.
We do, and I don't have my calendar in front of me, so you know me. I can't remember.
Then that's a good tease. We're gonna tell everybody we'll have a guest tomorrow, one of which we know but can't think of at this very second. The other one we'll try.
You are right. That is a hell of a tease, Jody.
We'll get somebody booked between now and 8 o'clock tomorrow, and I'll be up and ready. I'm gonna go set my alarm.
From Great Draft Guy.
There you go.
Football game plan. So we got a great draft guy, and we'll pair. So there, a little bit of a better tease.
There you go. Actually, knowing who someone is less of a tease, but a little bit more on point informationally. Again, thanks everybody who streamed in today. Johnny Mac, I'm back with you in 22 hours, whether you like it or not. I'm going to be here. My alarm's going to work, so you better show up. Are you in?
Body clock, baby. I'll be here.
McMullen will be here for sure. The Mac and Mac guys back on Birds 365 and 2 and 2.
You've been listening to Birds 365, the destination for the passionate Eagles football fan who bleeds green. If it's Eagles football, we're talking about it. Debate inside the locker room and guests that are some of the greatest football minds from around the region. We hope you enjoyed the show. We know we had a blast. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with us on social media at JAKIB Sports. See you next time on Birds 365.